I mean, you had back in the day when television was very young, there were competing systems. One didn't make it, and the other one did. Or you had like Beta and VHS, right? So the technologies that we managed to pick, we were very fortunate in that they're still prevalent today, and you can integrate with current technologies, and the system is still viable because of that. So I mean, I don't think we had that kind of forethought, but we were thinking, you know, let's make something work, and we just got lucky that we had many good pieces in place already. And like you said, the operating system was phenomenal. You know, the graphics was phenomenal. That user interface, phenomenal. So I mean, a lot of things were really well done, and it failed, or we thought it failed. But you know, it really didn't, because it just slipped back into obsolescence for a while, or you know, people just got onto some other things and realized, hey, wait a minute, we could use this for something else again. So it came back. It's back.
Und wie der Amiga zurück ist. 40 Jahre nach der Vorstellung des Computers versammelten sich über 1000 Amiga-Fans in Mönchengladbach. Dabei brach die Amiga 40 alle Rekorde, die vorherige Veranstaltungen gesetzt hatten. Größere Location, mehr Besucher, mehr Aussteller, mehr Ehrengäste und endlich eine gute Currywurst. Am Freitag ab 9 Uhr konnte das Amiga 40 Team und BBS Index alles für das Event und den Livestream aufbauen. Nachmittags kamen die Händler dazu. Alles wurde gründlich vorbereitet für die dickste Party, die ein Computer jemals nach 4 Jahrzehnten bekommen sollte. Am Samstag war es dann endlich soweit. Der ewig langen Schlange vor dem Eingang der NEW-Box, dem neuen Veranstaltungsort der Amiga 40 Germany, wurde Einlass gewährt. Etwa 30 Minuten später wurde der runde Geburtstag des Amiga-Computers von Amiga Bill offiziell eröffnet.
I've never seen an event like this before in my entire life. We have so many amazing Amiga fans here. We got Amiga legends. There's Petro right there. What's up, Petro? You can say hi to so many amazing folks. I see Dale Luck walking around over there. This is just going to be an amazing, amazing weekend, and I'm so honored to be here with all of you. Look at all of these Amigas, people customizing their Amigas. I've seen some incredible Amiga builds right here. We got a transparent Amiga 1200. We got Amigas hooked up to stereo systems. This is unbelievable. And that's what I love about Amiga. It's all of the hobbyists, all the people that modify their Amigas. They put so much love and creativity into their Amigas. It's never been a better time to be an Amiga. Let's start heading up to the main stage. Wow, look at that. Look at all these Amiga fans here. This is incredible. Woo! I think I see Rob Smith right here. My man, Rob Smith. How's it going? Gianluca, what's going on? What's going on, everyone? It's so good to see you all here. It's a pleasure. Kay, what's up, Kay? Hey, we got Jeff Bruette here. What's up, Jeff? Ron Nicholson, everyone. Ron Nicholson. All right. Woo! Guten Morgen. My name is Amiga Bill. Willkommen bei Amiga 40 Deutschland.
Damit startete das fantastische Line-Up auf der Bühne im Foyer. Legenden wie Ron Nicholson oder Dale Luck, die den Amiga zum Leben erweckt haben, standen neben anderen Amiga-Commodore-Legenden wie Beth Richard, Jeff Bruette und David Pleasance vor dem interessierten Publikum. Dazu gesellten sich weitere Bühnengäste aus der Gaming-Branche wie Jürgen Göldner, Hans Ippisch und viele mehr. Der Ansturm war groß. Markus Tillmann, der Veranstalter der Amiga 40, sagte, die haben uns am Merch-Tisch überrannt. Jeder wollte seine Amiga 40 Tasse haben. Diesmal gab es immerhin auch welche. Der Fehler, der auf der Amiga 38 passiert ist, dass es keine Tassen gab, wurde aber wieder gut gemacht. Man konnte sich die 38er Tasse neben vielen anderen Dingen der Amiga 40 als Andenken mitnehmen. Gleich neben dem Merchstand war eines der Top, wenn nicht das absolute Highlight der Show zu sehen. Lorraine ist zur Amiga 40 in Deutschland gekommen. Nein, das ist nicht Lorraine, die Dame gehört zu den Usertischen des A1K-Forums, wo wir uns später noch umsehen werden. Es geht um diese Schönheit hier. Okay, ich verstehe, warum man etwas erstaunt ist, dass wirre Kabel und sehr viel Elektronikkomponenten als Schönheit bezeichnet werden. Doch für Amiga-Fans ist dies der Anfang von allem. Vor 42 Jahren wurde dieser Prototyp des Amigas entwickelt. In einem Live-Segment für den Stream haben wir uns das technische Wunder mit Amiga Bill näher angesehen.
We have the original Lorraine prototype. We've got the breadboards that Mr. Dale Luck brought all the way over from California. It's the first time they've ever been in Europe. These are absolute treasures. I'm very thankful that Dale was able to get them through customs. Nothing suspicious about these at all. But to explain these better is the man himself, Mr. Dale. Dale, can you tell? We also have Ron Nicholson here, folks. Ron Nicholson, also the original Amiga team. We're so lucky to have these guys with us here in Germany. They're absolute treasures, and the fact that they're willing to come here and give us their time and spread their knowledge to us is a real gift. So, gentlemen, would you like to explain to the folks what we are seeing here? You have to. The mic is not very sensitive, so you have to put it very close.
Okay, what you're seeing here is how we originally developed the hardware necessary to actually build the Amiga, and more importantly to demonstrate it at CES to prove we could do it, right? And so back then, 40 years ago, there were no tools, CAD tools, where we could do design rule checking or simulation or anything like that. So the only way we could prove that we knew what we were doing was to build something that worked just like the 3 custom chips. And so we actually had to convert the design that was in custom chips to something suitable for, this is CMOS logic, individual gates. We had to convert it to that form so that we could actually have it wire wrapped up into emulation of the custom chips. And look, the custom chips contains this much logic if you break it down into individual gates, and this much wiring if you break it down into individual wires. And we actually hired many contractors to build all these boards, and then it was up to the team, including Dave Needle. Do you remember who else besides Dave Needle worked on debugging these? I've forgotten some of the names.
Don Peak.
Don Peak, and Glenn Keller, and Dave Dean. And those 3 brilliant engineers, you know, it only took about a month of debugging to get all these boards working to where we could demonstrate that the hardware actually worked and the software people actually could use it to show that their software worked. Do you want to say anything more, Dale?
Yeah, well, this is what we used to help develop the software before we got to custom chips, and that would then plug into the Amiga. Each one of these, this is Agnes, the blitter chip, and this is Daphne, which became Denise, the display, sprite, and playfield chip, and this is Portia, the port audio, the floppy disk controller chip. And down here is the motherboard, and each one of these would plug in to here via these big, basically umbilical cords from the chip stack into this board, and there are 3 separate ones that would plug in with the 68,000 and the ROM and RAM, and that became, the whole thing became the Lorraine project, the Lorraine product, the Amiga.
This is really special and incredible to have this here, guys. It just, as someone who is not technical, and when I see these, I don't even know how you got these to work. It's amazing. So what was the process? I see a terminal over here, a keyboard. Is that what you use to actually program and test the boards with?
This keyboard is a prototype for the Amiga keyboard, if you can see, there's one key on there that has the Amiga at that time part of the logo. So this is all done before Commodore bought Amiga. We merged with Commodore, and so what we're trying to show is all the stuff that was done in '83 and the early part of '84 to show what was the historical sequence of events that brought the Amiga 1000 to us.
Now, I've seen some classic photos of boxes with smiley faces on them on the airplane. Is this what was inside those boxes?
Yes, yeah. One of these was inside those. I think there were 3 boxes, each with a smiley face that had a bought ticket on an airplane, and those went to the January Consumer Electronics Show.
Now, these look very complicated, lots of intricate parts and intricate wiring. Did you ever have an issue when you were traveling with them to a show to get them working again once to the show?
Well, there's some stories. There was at one time when we're in the lab, and I noticed that something was broke. I could see on the display that this thing was generating, that the system had become broken, and I asked Dave Needle, let's take a look at it, and he figured out that it was some interface chips that had probably gotten a static discharge and were broken. To replace those, and we got it back working again. On the way to the Consumer Electronics Show, the first time we set it up, when we powered it up, I noticed that's the same problem I think I saw back then. Fortunately, we brought along spare chips, and Dave Needle was able to quickly replace those chips again, and we got it back up and running. The executives were amazed that we could figure out what the problem was so fast. They didn't know that we'd actually seen that problem before, like a week earlier, and so knew what we had to fix right away. And I'm so glad that we had that problem a week earlier and spent like 3 or 4 hours to try to figure it out. Back then, we didn't have to figure it out again.
Definitely some Amiga magic happening there. Now, I'm just a layperson like this. I'm curious, how do you go from these large boards down to the actual custom chips? Like, what's the process of making these into an actual Amiga 1000?
Well, actually, it was the other way. We started with the chip design, and then to prove the chip design worked, we sort of rewrote the schematics in the form of ICs. It sort of needed to prove that we knew what we were doing before we spent the money for fabricating the custom chips. Now, the custom chips themselves, nowadays you have CAD tools that create all the masks needed to make a custom chip. Back then, all of custom chips were designed in colored pencil on Rubylith paper, gate by gate, poly by poly, metal by metal, and it was all drawn out. And the engineers had to get on these large printouts, which covered almost half the floor of the office, and crawl around to check to make sure all the colored pencil drawings were correct so the chips would work.
Und so fing alles an mit Amiga. Doch ich würde hier gerne noch einen Schritt weiter zurückgehen. Wo sind die Wurzeln der Entwickler? 4 Amiga OGs.
The Amiga OGs, that's us, man.
Also die Original-Amiga-Entwickler waren auf der Amiga 40 zu Gast.
My name is Mike Slifcak. I worked for Amiga from November 1983 to March 1985. I was hired as manager of software QA, and at one point or another I did some software development for the team. I wrote the keyboard code for the controller for the original Amiga 1000 keyboard.
Hi, I'm RJ Mical. I was one of the original software on the software team, and was originally hired by Dale and worked under him to work on the graphics stuff, and then finally I created Intuition, the user interface for the Amiga.
Hi, I'm Dale Luck. I started at Amiga in 1983 in August. I was hired by Bob Pariseau, and soon after, several other fantastic software engineers joined our team, and I was there. I did the graphics software, initial graphics software, and I helped a little bit with the hardware design, and we wrote test programs for the hardware that became demos, and I stayed there till 1987 when I left.
Hi, my name's Ron Nicholson. I was first hired by a J Miner into a shelf company called High Toro, which is what turned into Amiga before Commodore bought them. I was the first just the director of engineering. Then I hired Bob Pariseau and I became the director of hardware engineering. Then I just did some hardware engineering and helped architect the original 3-chip custom chipset.
Well, I graduated from the Michigan Technological University in the Upper Peninsula in 1979 with a computer science degree. And coming out of college, I went to Hewlett-Packard, where I worked for about 4 years there, working on a computer graphics terminal that ended up costing $20,000. And then when that wound down and I was looking for something else to do, I interviewed at Amiga and thought, you know what, this does about the same thing as what I had just been doing at Hewlett-Packard, and it's less than, and it's only $1,000. So 20,000 to 1,000 is like, well, and it's going to do all this other stuff and be programmable. And it's like, well, okay, when can I start?
I'm pretty much OJT trained, so I learned
I don't know what OJT is.
On-the-job training. Yeah, it's a thing. So I did that. Well, I think I took 2 classes in college. One was Fortran, and another was raster graphics development. After I developed some raster graphics software, so I mean, it's like I was ahead of the curve. I was riding the wave, the microprocessor wave from the very beginning. I got into a program at Cal Poly University computer science program, engineering science, and I was going to be working with analog computers. And this is already, I had a year and a half experience working at NASA Ames on the Datatran digital systems, and I did Fortran emulation for something else, and I wrote several other device drivers. So by the time I got to Amiga, I'd already had developed firmware for the HP 5005 signature analyzer. I did the multimeter portion of it.
The key was how I got in was somehow I impressed someone at Apple that I was good enough to work on the Mac team, and then I was given J Miner to work with on one of the first chips in the Macintosh, a custom chip that went into the original Macintosh. It actually turned out to be the second source. They picked another vendor, but Jay and I worked together, and he decided that I would be a good person to work with. And, then I interviewed Glenn Keller and decided he'd be a cool person to work with, even though he had an oceanography degree rather than, anything to do with engineering. And it all worked out well. We picked smart people who worked really well together. And that was one of the keys.
So, when I interviewed at Amiga, no one asked me about my educational background. That was just not a question that was asked. I was asked about my technical expertise. I didn't actually take any interview tests or anything like that, but we talked enough that the people I was interviewing with felt confident about my skills. Plus, I already came with a recommendation, so it was a little bit easier for me. I like to tell the story of when I first showed up and was talking with the executives of the company. I was there to interview with a company that was going to create a new game system, and they all said, yeah, game system. And then my interviews took me back into the hardware group where Jay was there and Ron was there. And they showed me the whiteboard that had the block diagram of the Amiga, and that whiteboard had features in it, like it had a port for a keyboard, it had a port for external storage, and I looked at this stuff and I said, game system? What does a game system need with external storage? And so I went back to the executives, game system? So they said, oh, yeah, game system. And I said to Ron, game system? And Ron said, oh, yeah, game system. And that's when I knew I had to be part of this company. When I joined Amiga, I was joining a company that was doing a game system. And then fortunately, we're in a good position to create a real proper home computer. And then it had all of this horsepower to turn into this amazing multimedia machine that was doing things that no other computer could do at that time, and was doing things at such a low cost that anyone could afford to become their own video producer. And it really, literally changed the world in many, many different ways. But that machine, from the beginning, was a champion game system. It was designed to play games killer well. And the thing that I love the most about the Amiga, and the thing that still gets me to pull my Amiga out of the closet every few months and plug it in so I can play with it some more, are the games. The games on the Amiga were beyond belief. The quality, the breadth, the awesome enjoyment that I got out of those games. By far and away, I'm so happy that we actually did deliver an awesome game system.
Am Ende war und ist der Amiga also eine richtig gute Spieleplattform. Doch als der Amiga in Deutschland auf den Markt kam, gab es noch ein kleines Problem. Die meisten Spiele waren in englischer Sprache. Für Shooter und andere Actionspiele ist das nicht unbedingt ein Problem. Doch für Adventure- und Story-getriebene Spiele eben schon. Und hier kommt eine weitere Schlüsselfigur ins Spiel.
Mein Name ist Jürgen Göldner. Ich mache jetzt seit 42 Jahren Computerspiele und habe vorher als Beamter gedient und dann die Liebe zum Computer entdeckt durch den VC20, der sogenannte Volkscomputer, der seinerzeit beworben wurde, ich nehme mein Büro mit nach Hause, ganzseitige Anzeigen, aber im Endeffekt, wie ich auch, haben natürlich alle damit gespielt. So, was gestört hatte, war natürlich, dass alles in Englisch war. Also bin ich hingegangen und habe die Programme übersetzt ins Deutsche, die Software. Und alle meine Freunde haben sich natürlich richtig gefreut, denn damit waren die leichter spielbar. Jetzt war ich zwar Beamter, das heißt, ich kann gar nicht kündigen, habe ich dann trotzdem probiert und dann zusammen mit einem Partner eine neue Firma aufgemacht, die zunächst mal Rush Records hieß und danach Rushware, in Anlehnung an die Software, die dazugehört. Und von da an wurden es dann im Laufe der Jahre 18 Firmen in 11 Ländern, die organisiert waren in der Funsoft-Gruppe, die wir dann an die alten THQ in Kalifornien verkauft haben. Das war aber 99. Also in den ersten 16 Jahren haben wir nur aufgebaut, haben schnell gemerkt, der reine Großhandel ist nicht die Welt. Wir müssen ins Publishing gehen. Und die erste Lizenz, die wir ankaufen konnten, war dann Epics. Die Winter Games, die Summer Games, solche Dinge. Und kurze Zeit später, oder ein paar Jahre später, haben wir echt Glück gehabt und haben Lucasfilm als Lizenz erhalten. So, und auch da die Maßgabe, natürlich alles in Deutsch zu veröffentlichen, auch als Abgrenzung gegenüber den Raubkopierern, die natürlich dann mit den englischen Versionen Vorlieb nehmen mussten. Lucasfilm, bekannt durch die Filme natürlich, ob es jetzt Star Wars war oder Indiana Jones, hat aber auch eigene Spiele gehabt, wie Monkey Island oder Secret of Monkey Island und Zack McCracken und Grim Fandango und wie sie alle hießen, Full Throttle. Es kamen viele Spiele. So, und das war natürlich unser großer Glücksbringer, denn im Laufe der Jahre haben sich ja auch die Formate geändert. Es kam nun ein Star Wars Spiel namens Rebel Assault. Das erste Spiel auf einer CD, ein ganz neues Medium, CD-ROM, wo man die Daten lesen konnte. Wir hatten so tolle CD-Laufwerke mit einfacher Geschwindigkeit. Dafür kosteten die eben umgerechnet 600 €, so ein Laufwerk. Und wir haben dann gedacht, mein Gott, was machen wir mit Rebel Assault? Kaum jemand hat ja so ein CD-Laufwerk, aber da sind Filmsequenzen, die müssen wir rausbringen. Dann haben wir eine Auflage von 5000 Stück gefahren, was für damalige Verhältnisse schon sehr viel war. Das heißt, fast jedes CD-Laufwerk hat dann Rebel Assault abgespielt. Und im Laufe der 2-3 Jahre danach hat sich die Zahl dann natürlich irgendwo an die 100.000 eingependelt, denn es wurde ja das neue Medium. Ja, vor 83 muss ich natürlich in die Spiele reinkommen, möglichst den Kopierschutz umgehen, damit ich da übersetzen konnte. Aber ich wollte ja nicht über mein Leben als Hacker sprechen, na? Denn das war ja kaum was. Das war basic, war ganz einfach. Na, man macht ein Reset und dann war der Code da. So, danach kam dann eben die Maschinensprache Assembler. Das war auch relativ einfach, wenn man den Editor aufgerufen hat. Und dann konnte man da rein und irgendwann wusste man, welcher Buchstabe welche Zahlenkombination war.
Lokalisierung, also für den jeweiligen Markt die entsprechende Sprache anzubieten, ist immer noch beliebt. Der Look Behind You Verlag hat zum Beispiel ein französisches Buch über Monkey Island ins Deutsche übersetzt. Legal natürlich, ohne zu hacken. Wie ging also die Spieleübersetzung ohne übers Hacken zu sprechen?
Ja, und später natürlich haben wir den Text bekommen von den Lizenzgebern, von den Herstellern. Wir haben den übersetzt und dann wurde der dort eingespielt. Das war das letzte oder erste große Mal war bei Monkey Island, wo dieser Boris Schneider für uns die Übersetzung gemacht hat.
Es ist wirklich erstaunlich, welche Ehrengäste sich auf der Amiga 40 unter die Besucher mischten. Man konnte den ganzen Kreislauf des Amigas nachvollziehen. Von der Entwicklung und allen Geräten, die ein Meilenstein in der Amiga-Geschichte waren, bis hin zum Nutzer. Bevor wir zu den Usertischen kommen, muss noch erwähnt werden, dass Petro Tschitschenko zusammen mit Mario Schweder derzeit am Projekt Commodore Museum 2.0 arbeiten. Auf vielen Tischen konnte man von Produktionsprototypen bis hin zum letzten Amiga-Modell, dem Amiga MCC, alles anschauen. Dass sich diese geballte Computergeschichte mal in Deutschland treffen wird, ist Markus Tillmann und dem A1K-Forum zu verdanken. Und genau deshalb gibt es für User des Forums auch reservierte Usertische auf dem Event.
I mean, I can't help but notice this one. This one is really special to me because that is actually my turntable. That is a turntable that my dad rescued from the trash, and we turned it into some Amiga wallpaper. And it's here at this amazing exhibit. I see vacuum tubes on amplifiers. I see LED lights going crazy. My man, Jan, what is going on here at your exhibit?
Yeah, it's awesome as always. I really love it. It's the greatest event in a couple of years. And yeah, it's all of my stuff. I try to show as many things as possible, and Sunday fun day.
Today certainly is a Sunday fun day. Is there anything here in particular you'd like to show us? I'm really curious. Is that a headphone amplifier that you have there, or just a speaker amplifier?
Yeah, this 4000 is having the new Amigos sound card. It's an optical out, and I'm running it into this hybrid amp. And then you can have 250 ohms headphones and listen to lossless audio on native 68K Amiga and enjoy their audio fools Amiga.
It's absolutely incredible. Amigas is definitely like one of the highlights of this show, and it just shows the spirit of the Amiga community. Like the fact that someone could dream up a card like this and actually produce it in 2025, getting what is it? Is it 32-bit audio, if I'm not mistaken? Or 24-bit audio out of the Amiga. It's stunning, and I love how you hooked it up to that tube amp. What else do we have going on? I love the little 9-inch Sony monitor. That's beautiful. That's a nice touch as well. It looks like you have a Mister hooked up to it?
Yeah, it's running Mister because Mister has a nice TV output, and I ran out of Amigas. Pulled out the Mister.
You ran out of Amigas. Oh boy. I think I know where you can get one. I see some sort of virtual reality glasses. This is unbelievable. Is this yours?
Yes.
Oh, can you tell us with incredible?
Yeah, I mean, to educate people and remind people of VR was a very important and pivotal role which we played in creating virtual reality, basically industrial virtual consumer systems in the early days in the 90s. And I was seeing the first one in London, basically, was so amazed that VR was a thing. And later I found out it was actually run by an Amiga 3000. And we also have a video here which explains everything and the history about this and how VR was driven by Amigas. And now we are moving forward, 12 years later, we have all the VR headsets from all those big players. Unfortunately, not Amiga anymore, but it basically was a starting point of virtual reality, including the PC VR headsets in the 1995. That was my first experience with VR headsets. And now we show also a custom-made pinball machine we have here, where people can experience like a little bit of take, the old Amiga flippers and pinball machines you remember. You can play and you have good old vibe feeling of playing those. This is one project, and the other one is the Draco, which we bought after 20 years. We switched on today, and it still works. You can have a look at it when you ask my friend Gunnar about it.
Oh, the Draco. The Draco is a classic box. I see it's a video editing system, if I'm not mistaken. And so how amazing is it that you just bought this, you turned it on, and it still works? That's the spirit of Amiga, right?
Yeah, that was the question for the last day and today. If this machine would run after 19 years being not used, today we had the courage to try it, and it works.
Amazing. So what's inside of it? There's an Amiga inside of that, and it's a video editing system, right? Sort of like a video flyer situation.
This is not an Amiga inside. It's based on the Amiga OS, but this machine was built by Macro System, and it was after the Amiga get bankrupt, and so they had to build a computer or a machine on their own without the Amiga chips. And so they built this Draco system for non-linear video editing, and that is special OS, the Draco OS, which is Amiga OS, of course. And it still works after 19 years.
That's amazing. I love your image effects shirt as well. One of my favorite programs of all time. Great work, great job. What's you got there?
Yeah, I wear this T-shirt because I did the German manual image effects, and I did the German support for image effects at Hagen Partner.
Das ist richtig. Der Amiga war durchaus in der Lage, bei einer Videoproduktion eingesetzt zu werden. Wie das passiert ist, wissen natürlich am besten jene Menschen, die damals dabei waren.
Dave Morse really wanted to design a compelling game machine that could do animations and stuff that would really be entertaining to the average kid. So it couldn't be monomedia. It had to really be multimedia, even though multimedia hadn't been invented by them. The experience you needed to bring to be a video game beyond the the simple sprite video games of the Atari VCS would have to have all the features, the stereo sound, the multiple ways of doing animation, the multiple ways of doing color, a reasonably powerful processor back then. In fact, I think that was the most powerful processor we could afford. And then on the side, Jay, he nodded his head when Dave Morse said, "We're building a video game," and he said, "I really want a portable mini computer." So he had me and Joe DeCure, make sure that we didn't limit it to being a game machine. And so we said, if we were not limiting to a game machine, what does it need? Well, it needs a way to get the type of input that a developer would need, I/O ports for, communications, with other devices. And so we just made sure, if we have a few pins left over, we're going to put in a serial port. We're going to, and I could cheat a little because one of my jobs at Apple was to work on the Apple II. And so I knew from Woz's disk controller design that you could do the disk controller mostly in software with 4 dozen extra gates or something like that. And so I tell Jay, we could put a disk controller in, even though it would be useless and the area on the chip would only be an extra 0.5% or something like that. And Jay said, oh, that's a great idea. So we put that in. And so we just happened to have all the features that would combine a game machine with the developer's workstation with a home computer. And that combination, which really wasn't the intention of, Dave Morse at the beginning, the combination, the synthesis, you'd call it, created a whole that was more than the parts. And that synthesis, essentially we were the first movers in multimedia. The Amiga was the first mover in multimedia. We had the power of a good personal computer. I was disappointed that the Apple could not be recorded on the VCR. Joe DeCure was disappointed that the VCS couldn't be recorded on a VCR. So we just decided, let's clean up the timing and do it right. And so Joe DeCure and I, got the textbooks out and, I worked out the timing and he approved that it would work with the memory timing. And we put that in and that accidentally turned out to be all the circuitry you needed to do video sync and stuff like the video toaster. So it wasn't really an accident because we wanted to get the timing right, but the side product of that is we ended up being a multimedia system you could integrate with all the other multimedia developer tools, the professional tools of frame capture and video sync, and just the synthesis of all those ideas, that just one at a time came together, and it happened to be just the right combination to launch the multimedia industry. And so that's my point of view, having, worked on the hardware side and having to, nod to Dave Morse, yes, we're building a game machine, and then work with Jay Miner, make sure that the disk controller is fast enough to do density and stuff like that. And so, it just all worked out. I don't know if you had more perspectives to add to that, to the software side, because I know there were key software features that were needed to make that happen.
Well, I remember that there was a company called Singer Link that was on Arquez, I think, and they did flight simulators for the heavy industry for simulating jets and simulating airplanes and stuff like that. And I remember Jay asked, we want to be able to do a flight simulator on this computer. And my background in graphics and knowing how the hardware was set up, I thought, you know what? I think we can, especially when we got the hardware-assisted area fill to work. And so that was I think one of the goals of that was to be able to do that. Also, when we had the timing set up so that we could genlock and be able to overlay the Amiga graphics over a video image coming in and then merge them together, that was also something where I thought, there's a lot of potential in this technology where you can very simply, with a genlock device, all of a sudden you can have your video coming in, TV video or Laserdisc video coming in, and then interact with it, put the Amiga graphics, computer-generated graphics over the top of it. And so I thought that would be also another game changer in multimedia and presentation. And then to actually make all this technology, the audio, the incredible audio that we are able to do, to be able to organize that and control it properly, we really needed Carl's operating system. and the preemptive multitasking operating system that had semaphores, that had all these advanced computer science technologies written in a way that they worked so fast and they were so easy to understand for computer science people. That was another game changer. Is the multitasking operating system.
Was Grafik angeht, hat der Amiga tatsächlich noch eine weitere historische Marke hinterlassen. Das erste Computererzeugnis, das auch die breite Masse als Kunst wahrnahm, stammt aus einem Amiga. Und wenn ich breite Masse meine, dann meine ich Kunstszene und nicht Demoszene.
My name's Jeff Bruette, and I was a Commodore engineer in the early 80s. Started as doing games for the VIC-20 and then the Commodore 64. And then when Commodore acquired Amiga, I was involved with the launch event for that by teaching Andy Warhol how to do computer graphics, and then continued to support him in the months after that for various other activities he was involved with regarding the Amiga. Leading up to the Amiga launch, after Commodore had acquired Amiga, I was sent to Island Graphics in Sausalito, California, to oversee the development of the paint software, which is GraphicCraft and ProPaint. As the event date approached, the company actually recalled me to the East Coast, and I didn't quite understand why, because the paint program was not ready. But when I returned, they asked me to go to New York because they had hired someone to demonstrate the computer's graphic capabilities for the launch. They explained this person had no experience with computers whatsoever, and his name was Andy Warhol. The name meant nothing to me, and I kind of resisted and said, why don't we just hire somebody that knows something about computers? But they insisted that, no, they were going to use Andy Warhol to do that. And so I packed up my gear and so on, and was kind of complaining to my coworker at the next cubicle that I was having to go teach somebody that knew nothing about computers how to do computer graphics. And he asked who it was, and I said, Andy Warhol. He was kind of excited by that, and I said, what's special about Andy Warhol? He said, well, he designed he did the Campbell's soup cans, and I presumed that to be that he designed the labels for the cans that were on the grocery store shelves. I then went to New York, still not knowing there was anything special, and went to his studio, which was very dirty and dusty, stuff laying around all over the place, people kind of wandering around, doing different tasks around the facility. And it just really didn't make a whole lot of sense to me what was really happening. And but I got the computer set up and proceeded to work with Andy doing computer graphics, showing him the different features of the computer. He took to it rather well. He was enthusiastic. Not that he ever showed the enthusiasm, but he was enthusiastic from the standpoint of wanting to just understand different capabilities and could it do this, could it do that. But he was also very forgetful. For example, I would show him what the left mouse button does and what the right mouse button does. And we'd break for lunch. And when we got back, he couldn't remember the difference between the left and right mouse button. But throughout all this, I was actually more intrigued with the people that would stop by his facility, what's known as his factory. I didn't know it was called that at the time. And but people like Rick Ocasek from the 80s rock group, The Cars, would stop by, and I was really impressed with these kind of famous people that were stopping by. And so I didn't really have a clue, but I proceeded to do my job, showing this computer newbie how to use a computer. Leading up to the launch event, I did not save anything. I mean, there were images saved, but I just left those disks at at his studio and just never really, again, I did not realize that he was anybody famous, and therefore I had no reason to think. I mean, to me, the art was very simplistic. I didn't appreciate it for how much it paralleled his screen print work that he was already known for. However, I did see lots of screen prints around his studio, and to this day, I kind of want to kick myself because I probably could have said to him, "Oh, I really like that. Can I have one?" And he probably would have been happy to just hand me one because it was just that kind of thing. There was just art everywhere around his studio. But I never saved anything from then. The first time I actually saved something was when he was doing the rehearsal the day of the launch event. And the only reason I chose to save it was because it was a portrait of Debbie Harry. And I was impressed with the fact it was Debbie Harry from Blondie, not because it was an Andy Warhol piece of art. And I wasn't even saving it for myself. I thought he would be excited that he had a digital image of Debbie Harry, and I took it to give it to him, and he said, "No, you can keep it." And I, for whatever reason, I don't even know to this day why, I said, "Will you sign it?" And he borrowed a Sharpie from somebody in his entourage, and he signed it and handed it back to me and said, "Here, it's yours." And so I've kept it for all these years, and I have that. In addition, I have some images from when he did his interview for Amiga World magazine. He created lots of images that day, and I was on hand to be technical support for him, so I saved a bunch of the images and made a copy of the disc, of course, for Amiga World so they could select which images they wanted to use in their article. But I kept a copy of the disc for myself, and that disc I still have till today.
Doch der Amiga lebt nicht nur von der großartigen Vergangenheit. Endlich gibt es die Siedler 2 für den Amiga oder die Amigos, eine neue Soundkarte oder ein komplett neues Mainboard mit Amiga DNA, das sogar PCI Express Anbindung hat. Die Amiga Community haut raus, was sie nur kann. Alteingesessene Anwender, Neuinteressierte und auch Sammler liefen das Wochenende durch die Hallen der NEW-Box. Sammeln konnte man auch Karten der Ehrengäste. An verschiedenen Ständen konnte man sich die Karten mitnehmen. Einige nutzten die Gelegenheit und ließen sich diese Karten sogar signieren. Nachdem der Amiga auf dem Markt war, hat Commodore versucht, diesen auch im Markt für professionelle Anwender zu positionieren. Einer der Verantwortlichen für diese Aufgabe war ebenfalls zu Gast auf der Amiga 40.
Peter Keschichian, mein Name, mittlerweile 62 Jahre alt, lebe in den USA seit über 10 Jahren, bin in Deutschland geboren und aufgewachsen, aber als amerikanischer Staatsbürger hatte ich die Gelegenheit, zweisprachig aufzuwachsen. Sprich mein hessischer Dialekt, den ihr jetzt hört, aber genauso gut kann ich ganz schnell ins Englische oder ins Amerikanische umschwenken und der typische Amerikaner würde es nicht mitbekommen. Bei Commodore bin ich eingestiegen Mitte 89, nachdem ich bei Hewlett Packard für den HP Vectra und HP Laserjet und Scanjet verantwortlich war als Product Manager. Und die haben mich abgeheuert, Commodore, eben unter der Maßgabe, den Amiga in den professionellen Markt zu bringen. Ich glaube, da gab es gar keine wirkliche Vorstellung. Ich war auch zu jugendlich leichtsinnig, sage ich mal, da genauer nachzufragen. Ich kannte natürlich Commodore und Amiga als sehr starke Marken, ja, das hat man ja überall mitbekommen. Aber ich war zu jung, um wirklich zu hinterfragen, was bedeutet denn Professionalität für euch? Und was habt ihr denn da schon in die Wege geleitet? Also diese Fragen, die man alle mit dem Alter oder mit mehr Erfahrung quasi stellen würde in einem Interview, Personalinterview, im Grunde genommen, um abzuchecken, ob das ist, was man eigentlich will. Für mich war das Spannende einmal das Thema natürlich Professionalität, aber ich wollte auch Personalverantwortung haben, die haben sie mir gegeben. Ja. Und so habe ich eben meine Karriere damals gesehen, um das mich nach vorne zu bringen als erstes Mal, aber auch eine spannende Aufgabe zu haben. Ja. Bei Hewlett Packard hatte ich eine sehr verantwortliche Aufgabe. Der Scanjet und der Laserjet, das waren die Produkte schlechthin, ja, die überall rumstanden und für ganz viel Geld damals zumindest verkauft wurden. Ja. Also wie ich dorthin kam, war der schon im Home-Computer-Segment positioniert und ganz klar mit Grafik und mit Musik. Da haben wir ja noch ein bisschen gegen Atari ein bisschen gearbeitet, ja, aber auch zusammengearbeitet. Ich habe mit Kawaii eine Roadshow gemacht. Da haben wir dann Keyboards mit dem Amiga 500 verkauft, ja. Ja, aber auch das ist ein professioneller Markt, der Musikmarkt, ja, und auch nicht ein zu kleiner Markt. Also ich habe alles versucht, um den Amiga professionell positionieren zu können. Ob das jetzt letztendlich, ich bin mehrschienig gefahren, ja, aber man braucht eben eine gewisse Konsistenz, um da letztendlich auch Erfolg zu haben. Ich sag mal, Commodore war sehr quartalsdenkend unterwegs. Ja? Stückzahlen, am Ende des Quartals müssten die Zahlen stimmen, ist auch alles in Ordnung. Das ist typisch für amerikanisch geführte Unternehmen, dass am Ende des Quartals die richtigen Zahlen dastehen müssen, weil sie sich dann eben berichten müssen oder eben ihren Aktionären oder Inhabern entsprechend auszahlen müssen. Das ist ganz normal. Aber wenn ich was investiere oder was in einen neuen Markt hineingehen will, dann muss ich auch erstmal investieren. Und das ist letztendlich ausgeblieben aus meiner Sicht. Das und ein paar technische Herausforderungen, wie zum Beispiel die Bildwiederholfrequenz. Ja, wenn du vor einem Bildschirm sitzt, der 50 Hertz hat, der flackert. Ja? Auch wenn wir am Fernsehen heute haben wir 100 Hertz, ja, und mehr letztendlich. Das war meine technische Forderung. Ja? Und wir hatten ja auch da einen Interimsschritt, um dorthin zu kommen. Wir hatten ja dieses, wie hieß es denn, Clickboard, Bridgeboard, was da für 2000 Mark hätte in den Amiga reingepasst, um eben die Bildwiederholfrequenz auf eine 70 oder 80 Hertz hochzuschrauben. Also ich habe mit Lotus und mit Microsoft und wie sie alle hießen, alle gesprochen, habe gesagt, hier, das ist der neue PC, wir wollen gerne in diesen Markt hineingehen, das sind seine Stärken, Multitasking, Grafikfähigkeit etc. pp. Wir brauchen aber eure Unterstützung, um wirklich in diesen Markt rein verkaufen zu können, um nicht nur Nischen wie Architektur oder Design, Marketingdesign oder Videoproduktion abdecken zu können. Und Lotus war die einzige Firma, die damals gesagt hat, ja, wollen wir. Aber die wollten eben auch ein gewisses Commitment von Commodore. Und dieses gewisse Commitment war einfach nicht, wollte Commodore nicht geben. Ich bin ja ein sehr business-denkender Mensch, sehr analytisch denkender Mensch. Und wenn ich dann hingehe und Bundles verkaufe, die einfach funktional nicht miteinander funktionieren können, ja, an sich, sei denn man hat wieder irgendeinen Adapter, den man vergessen hat mit reinzubauen und so weiter. Ich denke da gerade an die Aktion Amiga 500 und C64 Laufwerk, was da auf einmal verkauft wurde. Und wir haben das gar nicht mitbekommen vom Vertrieb her. Und auf einmal haben wir hunderte von Anrufen beim Rainer Bender und Peter Kittel, kamen die dann rein. Und dann sagt der Rainer, sag mal, haben wir da irgendwas verkauft, wovon wir nichts wussten? Und dann habe ich so, keine Ahnung. Frage ich doch mal nach. Ja, und dann wurde das dann bestätigt, dass das verkauft wurde. Und da war ja klar, dass das nur Frust bei den Kunden bringt, ja, dass das nicht miteinander funktionieren kann. Und das hatte bei mir zumindest das Fass zum Überlaufen gebracht. Ja. Und ich bin dann damals zu unserem Geschäftsführer gegangen und habe gesagt, hör zu, so nicht, ja, und ohne mich. Und dann hat er gesagt, ist in Ordnung. Ohne die Wimper zu zucken.
Commodore mag damals nicht immer die richtigen Entscheidungen getroffen zu haben. Mit dem gleichen Gefühl geht auch dieser Bericht zu Ende. Es passieren inzwischen so viele Dinge auf der Amiga Germany, dass man nicht alles einfangen kann. Obwohl man 2 Tage Zeit hat und weit über 10 Stunden Aufnahmen von der Bühnenshow. Natürlich war die Cosplayerin Raven Laudess wieder vor Ort. Dave Haney, der schon zum Inventar des Events gehört, war auch wieder dort. Die Verlosungen, der Community Award, die gestohlene Abdeckung eines Amiga-Prototyp, der ganz am Ende der Veranstaltung auf dem WC wiedergefunden wurden, oder all die Gespräche mit jenen, die den Amiga am Leben halten. Am Samstag war der Andrang so groß, dass am Stand des APC und TCP Verlag, auch bekannt als amigashop.org, nur noch einen Haufen leerer Kartons übrig hatte und wenige Notreserven unter dem Verkaufstisch und das, was noch auf dem Tisch drauf lag. Die Amiga 40 hat eingeschlagen und erneut unvollstellbares Momentum weltweit generiert.
I mean, really, 40 years ago, I wasn't thinking that I was going to do anything like this that would affect people. Certainly not people that hadn't been born yet. I wasn't thinking about them at all. So, what happened? I mean, and for me, I hadn't really been involved in the Amiga for the last 35 years, honestly. It's only like the last 3 years when I reached out to RJ after meeting one of the other Amigans at a winery. I was just having some wine with my wife, and she saw there's this plate on his car that says Amiga on it. There must be somebody here from working there. Sure enough, it was Don Reisinger, the marketing guy. And okay, so he said, you should go to this Amiga user group up in Sacramento. And I went, and it's like, these guys are like playing with the games. They're working on newer hardware. It's like, holy crap, this is really something. And I went to Amiga West. Then I went to the 40th in Mountain View, and I was blown away by that. This is much bigger than that one. And at the same token, it's the same kind of feeling. There's a lot of excitement, a lot of interesting things going on. There's people that are writing games. They're developing hardware, new hardware. They're doing FPGAs with Amiga footprints on it, and they're taking the old stuff, they're revamping it, they're building it again. Wow. And then you see all the little kids out there playing. Like, wow, this is really cool. It's like it's a family, it's a community. It's really something more than what it was when it was first being created. I mean, we were building games, we were having our own fun, taking our own joy out of doing what we were doing, and it's just been amazing.
Also, wie viele Stände da draußen sind, wie viele Menschen da draußen, ich glaube 1200 Menschen waren gestern da, die sich ein 30 Jahres altes Produkt im Grunde genommen zu Herzen genommen haben und immer noch dafür fiebern und reparieren lassen oder neue Komponenten dazu kaufen oder sich belehren lassen und Geschichten an absoluter Flash. Und der zweite Flash ist im Grunde genommen, nachdem ich von Commodore weggegangen bin, war ich nie mehr auf so eine riesen Messe in der Form. Ja? Und ich hatte ja noch die Amiga, die 1 und die 2, die ich ja mitgemacht habe in Köln, miterlebt mit diesem Massenandrang. Natürlich habe ich das nicht hier erwartet. Aber der Markus Tillmann hatte mich schon vorgewarnt. Ja? Und dann habe ich gesagt, wie viele Leute kriegst du zusammen? Ja? Und es ist ja nicht nur so, dass das jetzt hier aus dem näheren Umfeld von Mönchengladbach ist. Die kommen ja von überall her.
Well, it's interesting for me since, I had been involved in several different projects and companies in Silicon Valley, and a lot of those went nowhere. And, I'm very disappointed when you work hard on a project that you think you're going to contribute and no one ever uses it. It never makes it out the front door. It's so disappointing. And I actually thought that that was the case with the Amiga for about a quarter century, because I left before the big introduction at Lincoln Center. I heard about that later, but from having been at Apple before, I did not have a strong impression of Commodore management, so I wasn't sure what the long-term prognosis would be. And then later, there was one store in Silicon Valley that stocked Amigas, and they went out of business about a year later. No one I knew had it. So I basically forgot about the project, said, well, you know, water in the bridge. I tried really hard. I worked with really cool people. We created something that we thought would go somewhere. But, you know, the luck of the draw was it didn't. And then 10 years ago, someone calls me up and says, are you going to this big Amiga event? And I go, Amiga event? Big? I could not conceive of that. I had to ask, I had to, you know, get references to ask people around, well, is this real? Is this for real? Is this, you know, stuff like that. So basically, I meekly wrote the organizer and said, I hear you have an Amiga event going on. I had something to do with the Amiga. Would it be interesting for me to come there and, you know, talk or be around? And he goes, who are you?
Who are you?
So basically, Joe DeCure and I got together and we sent him just 3 patent numbers. That's all we sent him. And so we ended up being the keynote speakers at the Amiga 30 event when he found out who we are. And that's how I got re-involved. And I go to the Amiga 30 event, not sure what would happen, until I found out that one of my friends who tried to get into the event couldn't get in because it was sold out. And the Computer History Museum is not small. Right? So that was my first concept that something is going on here, that there's a community big enough to sell out an event at the Computer History Museum. And I go there and there's a huge crowd. And for the first time in my life, people come up to me and I have designed lots of interesting products, you know, but no one ever told me the Nintendo 64 changed their lives, right? A half dozen people, maybe a dozen people came up and said, you started my career as a computer musician. You started my career as a graphic artist. You know, I went to school to learn programming because my first computer was a Amiga 1000, and that's, you know, that changed my life. And I'm going, well, I guess this project, this product that I worked on, this team that I worked with, I guess we didn't fail. And I'm still astounded that we didn't fail so badly, that it's now a major community, still, you know, writing software, developing hardware, fan clubs. The events seem to be growing in size. They're wonderful people to talk to at all these events. It just, you know, after 25 years of thinking, you know, water under the bridge, and all of a sudden it popping up and being, you know, and people, you know, being, you know, wanting to meet me to talk about, you know, stuff that I did 42 years ago. You know, I could not imagine people would want me to pose for selfies in front of a wire wrap prototype that I, you know, wire wrapped together 42 years ago. You know, 42-year-olds is stuff that went in the junk bin decades ago, but thanks to Dale, he's preserved an important bit of history, and it has a fan base.
It's really a strange feeling to be here at the Amiga 40th in Germany, because I see all of these people that absolutely love the Amiga and how it makes them feel. And for me, I could never have anticipated 40 years ago that somebody would care today. I can't imagine somebody caring 10 years later, let alone 40 years later. And when I look around here, it surprises me, not only do people take an interest in the origins of the Amiga, but they have kept it going with new developments, not even just replacement parts, but new versions of the Amiga, reworks of the operating system, adding features. And it just really amazes me that this many years later, people care. and not only care, but they're very passionate about it. It also surprises me when people come up to me and ask for my autograph. What makes that so strange, I could understand if I had been the one that created, if I was Andy Warhol and they wanted my autograph. I don't understand how, as the guy that taught Andy Warhol how to do computer graphics, wants my autograph. It doesn't make sense to me. I oblige, and I do it happily, but in my mind, every time that happens, I have to just think to myself, why are they doing this? It just baffles me.
When we made the Amiga, our dream was to create a machine that anyone could afford, that anyone could understand how to use, and as Dale said, to bring mainframe power and capabilities and give it to the people, to everyday people, and we succeeded with that so many times over. The part that we didn't see coming was how influential the machine turned out to be in many people's lives. All the time I get letters from people telling me, several times so far at this show, I've had people tell me, I got my break in IT. I started as a graphic artist because of my first experiences with the Amiga. And this was a dream that we didn't really see coming. We wanted it to be that, but no one actually ever hoped that we would be that successful, that we would be able to touch people like that. But this, 40 years later, and it's growing. It's not smaller, it's getting bigger year by year. And I think that's got to be a reflection of the fact that when we made the machine, we poured our hearts and our souls into it. When Dale was on stage earlier today, he talked about it was a mission from God that we were on. We were really trying to change people's lives and make the world better for people. And it's, I feel like exploding with joy when I see how much is still going on out there and how much passion we are still bringing out of people. And I really firmly believe it's because our hearts went into that machine in the first place. And you see that, you can feel that. People have felt that all along.
Nein, das war eine echte Überraschung. Ja, und wenn ich höre, dass hier 2000 Leute herumrennen, das ist für mich beeindruckend. Denn der ist ja seit einigen Jahren nicht mehr da, der Computer. Um nicht zu sagen seit 40. Dass es da noch jede Art von neuen Gehäusen und Tastaturen und externen Accessories da gibt, Zubehör gibt. So, und dass es dafür offensichtlich noch einen Markt gibt. Damit habe ich nicht gerechnet. Ne? Ich habe wirklich gedacht, das ist nur das alte Zeug noch.
Marcus, oh my God, look what you've created. This is absolutely mind-blowing. You've created this extremely special event, bringing Amiga fans from literally all over the world together. You know, we meet online, and that's really fantastic. But the real gem, the real beauty of it is getting together in person and meeting friends, meeting Amiga family in real life. And like I said, you know, I'll never forget my experience at AMI Expo in 1990. It's a moment in time that I take with me, you know, for the rest of my life. And what you created here this weekend, many people will also remember for the rest of their lives. So thank you so much, Marcus, for bringing us all together. It was absolutely amazing and an honor to be here. Thank you so very much.
Hello, Marcus. I'm Mike Slifcak. We haven't met yet, but I think we will. I just want to say thank you so much for putting on this show, and thank you so much for helping me get here with the tickets and such. It's been a real big thing for me. I don't want to get into it, but I've had some personal issues recently, and it's huge. Thank you again for putting on a wonderful show.
So Marcus, this is the 4th time you've allowed me to come here, and every time it gets better and better and more enjoyable for me, and equally it seems impressively enjoyable for the many Amiga fans you you support bringing to such a wonderful event.
Hello, Marcus. Thanks for pestering me for all these years to finally come to this show. It's incredible. I'm blown away by all the work you've done and the bringing my friends here and us all able to get together and enjoy camaraderie, and then also seeing the incredible fan base, the incredible number of people who are actually, as I said before, we were kind of a family at Amiga, and now we have an even bigger family with all these people that are here. It's almost brings tears to my eyes. I'm so happy. So thank you, Marcus.
Hello, Marcus. I've been asked to comment on whether or not I thought you've done something spectacular here with your Amiga event. And my verdict is yes. Brilliant job, man. This has been a fantastic show. Love the fact that you bring all these wonderful Amiga people together from all around the world and that you give us all a chance to celebrate with one another. Thank you so much. Well done.
And I double that thanks.
Marcus, I really, really want to thank you for inviting me to your Amiga 40th event here in Germany. It just so impresses me the level to which you have brought this event, not only for the organization, but for the vast range of speakers that you've invited, the countless number of attendees that have come here, and everyone is having a great time. And I just so appreciate that you thought of me to include me in this. I thank you.
Lieber Markus, ich bedanke mich für deinen Enthusiasmus, die Amiga mittlerweile, die Amiga 40 hier zu veranstalten. Ich bedanke mich auch, dass du so viele Jahre an mir drangehangen hast und mich immer wieder erinnert hast, dass du eine neue Messe aufbaust, um diese ja auch mal zu besuchen und meinen Beitrag zu deinem Erfolg zu leisten. Ich freue mich, dass ich das machen konnte. Ich bedanke mich für die Einladung und für die Wärme, die ich hier erfahren habe von so vielen Menschen, was ich schon so lange vermisst habe. Dankeschön.
Ich finde, das, was Markus hier aufgezogen hat, verdient Anerkennung. Ja, es ist ein Riesenerfolg aus meiner Sicht, wenn ich sehe, wie voll die Hallen sind. Wenn ich sehe, wie interessiert die Leute an den Vorträgen sind. Auch die Stühle sind immer besetzt. Ich habe mich heute Morgen nur erschrocken, wie Leute auf der Bühne stehen mussten, weil keine Stühle da waren. Da habe ich dann geschimpft. Hat sich dann geändert.
Amiga forever.